It is often said that the Witcher 3's combat system is one of, if not the weakest part of the game. Some defend it by saying that the builds, potions, and alchemy give it a depth that makes it good. I reject that statement. The Witcher 3 has a fantastic sword combat system that doesn't require mods, and in fact some mods will often ruin the strengths of the system by overriding them with generic, less interesting mechanics. While it's not a perfect system, its biggest flaw is not explaining in depth its combat mechanics, perhaps because, as some claim, they are unfinished. I don't know how true is this, but in this video I will explain the advanced combat mechanics that most people fail to take advantage of. After learning this mechanics and tricks, you will likely realize this game has an amazing fluid and grounded combat system that is very satisfactory. Movement flows in soft curves and Geralt dances around his enemies with the technique hinted at in the books. It has rhythm, power, and engaging tension if you are willing to set it up. The Witcher 3 has a system where previous movements and attacks determine the next animation that will be added to your attack string. I believe so-called links are what determine what attack animation will be chosen next. Since we cannot understand this from the visible code, we will focus on what we do absolutely know: the relative position to the target. Witcher 3 processes 3 distances when it comes to its attacks: none, medium, and large. It also processes 3 directions: front, lateral, and back. We do not know how the exact angles affect the moveset, but it's likely anything outside a 60-degree cone will trigger lateral attacks. Either way, it's the distance that matters most. To make the explanation easier, I will separate the moves in 5 categories: pirouette attacks, half pirouette attacks, regular slashes, back thrusts, and roll stabs. Pirouettes. Pirouettes are the basic attacks in The Witcher 3 and the most used ones, which is a shame because they are the worst moves in the game since they are slow and leave you exposed while doing them. These attacks are triggered by frontal attacks to an enemy within long to medium distance. Half pirouettes. Half pirouettes are a suboptimal but effective attack. They are triggered after sidestepping but failing to keep the sidestep's momentum, meaning Geralt's sword will be less close than it could be. This concept will be explained later. Slashes. Proper slashes are achieved by sidestepping into an enemy's side and attacking while keeping the momentum of said dodge. These are the fastest and most effective regular attacks. You can also trigger opposite side slashes if you delay the attack enough, but not if you add an attack to the string while performing the dodge. Back thrust. Thrusts are arguably the best and most effective move in Geralt's moveset. They are fast, stagger, and are incredibly damaging. Perform an attack directly in the opposite direction to the previous one. This requires to be set up, which makes it not that good of a move, but it is very useful in some situations. Roll stab. The roll plus stab move is a very good move, but the hardest to trigger consistently. It requires different elevation and previous movement, so it is better to ignore when practicing, in my opinion. This said, be aware that there is a very good chance it will be triggered in different elevations, so you might want to use that to your advantage. Momentum. One key aspect I've observed in The Witcher 3 is that the movement control directly affects the moveset. The key to getting the best move is usually to continue Geralt's rotation when he dodges. This is hard but extremely satisfying when mastered. Geralt's first strike after dodging will always be a vertical cut coming from his left if he is close to the target. This means the closer the sword is to the target the moment the dodge finishes, the faster the strike will be. As I said before, an opposite direction attack can be triggered if you delay the attack a bit. This concludes the basic mechanics most people are unaware of. Bear in mind most of these can be learned through gameplay observation. I only looked up the code to make sure this video was not including partial or misunderstood information. We will now move to the application of this knowlegde using my limited experience, focusing on the mistakes I've seen around. So if you want to experience the learning of these concepts by yourself, feel free to leave and learn through practice. Attack range. The most important factor of combat in human history has always been, and will probably always be, the distance of engagement. Enemies do not teleport mid-swing, and neither does Geralt, which is something you have to consider and use to your advantage. Enemy range. Enemies can fly, jump, run and throw themselves at you, but with exceptions you will have to deal with on your own. They have defined ranges you can control. This means if you manage to decipher that range and stay outside of it, you can set up counterattacks with zero risk. Your range. Just like your enemies, you have a limited range and your attacks will differ with it. Stop expecting Geralt to do all of the work just because you pressed a button. Gauge how far you can attack in each situation and use it to your advantage. Guard. The Witcher 3 uses the classic guard that slows your energy regeneration. This means most players don't bother guarding in fights. I highly recommend to lower the guard only when completely sure it is safe to do so, as even unblockable attacks will cause less damage when the guarding, even if it causes a stun. The player should decide when this is a good idea depending on the situation, health and enemies. Whirlwind. The whirlwind move is often abused and paired with highly defensive builds and stamina/adrenaline regeneration. This is not a good idea, as enemies will often be able to adjust to it and cause damage. It is better to use it as a way to break tight formations or overwhelm a single enemy, as this attack cannot be parried, to my knowlegde. Learn the activation times to avoid receiving unnecessary damage, and use it briefly when surrounded. Rend is a fantastic move and the only heavy attack I will briefly explain in this video, as it is very straightforward. It requires good setup and is great to finish off enemies or deal great amounts of damage to specially dangerous ones. Stop lazily trading off damage and use openings, advantageous timings and calculated distances to get the most of it. Openings. Here's one mind-blowing fact about the game that fundamentally changes the way you play. Enemies detect when you are attacking and will try to exploit that opening. That's why when you attack and trigger an attack pirouette, you will see enemies just happen to attack you at the same time, causing frustration. Bear this in mind when in combat. Attack windows. The key to perfecting the Witcher 3's combat is the creation of openings in the enemy's formation. This is most important when fighting several enemies, as they will cover each other's openings. Understanding when the enemies are no longer capable of dealing damage or in what positions is key to perfecting the combat, instead of recklessly charging into a pack of wolves only to get stun-locked and teared to shreds in seconds because you didn't think before. For this, use signs, bombs, move around, choose your potions wisely, stunning enemies, or delaying their attack capability. Group management. Hyperfocusing. It is common when playing Witcher 3 to get distracted and lose situational awareness. When fighting a group, remember, the enemies will not wait for you to finish attacking. This means you have to pay attention to the movements of not only the target, but their companions. Using the target lock. One of the most annoying problems in The Witcher 3 and the only real problem I absolutely recommend fixing with a mod is the locking system. I use and recommend the mod Enhanced Targeting, which has both the old and next-gen edition. It does require configuration, as the default settings are horrendous and worse than vanilla. I recommend abusing the camera influence option. With this out of the way, bear in mind that the target is the one with the active health bar. Geralt will try to hit that enemy no matter how far is it or how many enemies are attacking him at the same time. To compensate this, you can activate and deactivate the target selection. Enemy alignment. One often ignored aspect of combat is enemy alignment and formation. Like in real combat, Enemies will be able to attack you while you attack one of them, and this is at its worst when you attack the one in the middle of a formation, often the targeting system choice because of the camera alignment. Move around and use signs, obstacles and your enemies' bodies to limit their options. The enemies can't phase trough each other to attack you, so if you manage to line them up, you are effectively fighting one foe at a time.
Well, how long you gonna make me wait?
Of course, nothing here is really necessary for the game. You can just level up overpowered, but cheesy, abilities like the Quen personal shield, which is not lore accurate, just like returning arrows like this is Star Wars. Stack up on potions, signs or other unbalanced builds that allow you to play the game comfortably even in Death March difficulty. But please, stop claiming that The Witcher 3's sword combat is atrocious, and it should have another generic system with a static parry and automatic movement system. It is surely too late for The Witcher 4, which will probably have a new combat system instead of this magnificent, surprisingly realistic one, for what it is, simply polished. But let's appreciate this small part of one of, maybe even the, best games ever made. Thank you for your attention. See you around and good luck on the path.